A man and a woman stand at the archway of the castle. The man asks Mrs. Wu Yue if she has made her final decision. The woman replies that yes, if the child remains with her, he will die. She holds a blue-eyed newborn baby in her arms. She gently strokes his face with her hand and asks for forgiveness. The child is the only remaining heir to the divine power. A bright flash illuminates the space. The mother hugs her child to protect him. She hands the baby to the man and asks him to quickly leave here. The enemies are already close. The child must be sent to a place where no one will find him. The man promises her to do so. The child was separated from his mother and his abilities were sealed. The man handed the baby to the nanny and returned to protect his mother. To survive, the child must now rely on his own strength. He was abandoned in a slum full of sin. Wu Yue stands in the middle of the hall, and people in black crowd around her. They invite her to go with them on good terms. There was only one reason for the fact that mother and son were in such a difficult situation: the envy of the gods. Wu Yue tells the people who wish her harm that in the future they will regret what they did today. God fell, like stars from the sky. The boy was beaten on the street by other children when he begged for alms. They laughed at him and humiliated him for his weakness and took away his food. The boy, who had lost his memory, fought for survival until he turned 18. Shan Yue is standing in front of a poster near the penal colony. This is a poster for the Living Dead Club. Death is our hope. The competition system is 7-on-1. Only one will survive. The prize fund is 3 million. The life and death struggle among bearers of the Black Ring will be broadcast live within the territorial jurisdiction. Shan Yue thinks that if he wins the competition, then 3 million will be enough for him to buy what he needs. A friend comes up to him and asks what he is staring at. Shan Yue opens his blue eyes wide and answers, no matter what. His friend reads the poster and is perplexed. Is death hope? What hope can there be after death? Those silver guys must have put together this propaganda. For them, people's lives are just tools in a game. People should kill each other and they will watch and have fun. Did Shan Yue have crazy thoughts in his head? The guy shakes his head negatively. His comrade is happy about this. This guy is not so easy to raise. Shan Yue wonders if his comrade received supplies. And Chong happily shows that he got everything. He throws away his cloak and now you can see that he is missing one arm. Instead, a prosthesis with an awl instead of a brush. Shan Yue frowns and rejoices at the same time. They will be able to eat well, but En Chong's hand is bothering him. You can't turn a blind eye to her anymore. En Chong pulls his cloak. If outsiders see the supplies, they may take them away. He grabs Shan Yue with his good hand and drags him home. Two people are fighting on a deserted street, an old man and a young guy. The old man does not give the guy the supplies. They are his. The guy hits the old man and takes the bundle from his hands. The guy assures the old man that he doesn't need to eat. He doesn't even have teeth. You shouldn't hold on to food like that. The guy jumps into the truck and drives off. If the old man wants his supplies back, let him buy them back. He throws the package to the others. The truck is full of these food boxes. Shan Yue suggests En Chong to take a different route. It looks like they won't be able to walk here in the future. En Chong silently looks at the crying old man, and from the gateway, she throws him a package of food. He advises the old man to go home quickly and not stay outside for long. It is a place for outcasts, where people fight for food, and those who cannot fend for themselves simply wait to die. The old man does not have time to run home. He is met on the stairs by two strong guys. Let the grandfather give the food if he doesn't want to die. Humanity, kindness, trust, these things are useless in this sinful kingdom of exile. And the people living here, like Shan Yue and En Chong, are children abandoned by God. When they arrived home, Shan Yue told En Chong that as soon as his prosthesis was fixed, he could go to the jurisdiction and file a claim. He will be able to go there and work part-time. Of course, then they won't be able to see each other so often. En Chong did not answer. He fell fast asleep. Shan Yue covered him with a cloak. The room the boys lived in was very shabby. Shan Yue's gaze fell on his comrade's prosthesis. He took it in his hands and read the illuminated inscription, "Error." The prosthesis didn't work. Memories came flooding back to him. He and the healthy En Chong went out for supplies a few years ago. Shan Yue left his comrade as guard and left. He shouted to En Chong to wait for him, and he rushed into the fighting crowd of people. En Chong stood and waited for his comrade. He trusted him very much and knew that he would definitely return. Someone's hands grabbed his head and dragged him somewhere. Shan Yue returned with his hands full of food and began calling for his comrade, but he was neither in the alley nor nearby. Strange sounds were heard from the dark opening of the destroyed building, and the boy went there. He saw En Chong lying down with the monster bending over him. It handed the boy the severed hand of his comrade and asked if the guy would join him for dinner. Shan Yue screamed loudly in horror. If he had not left En Chong alone back then, things would have been different. He looked at the broken prosthesis and felt guilty. For some time he sat silently on the bed opposite his sleeping friend. Then he stood up, took the prosthesis and asked Chong to wait for him. He owes his friend this hand. Shan Yue went outside. He had to be back before dawn. The scoreboard began counting down the last 10 seconds. Shan Yue stood in the ring and was attacked by an opponent who was holding a knife in his hand. The guy's whole appearance expressed firm determination. He will definitely receive these 3 million. The supernatural world, ruled by rings, is divided into 3 parts. The celestial city. The second part is called jurisdiction, and the third exile zone. Every child must take an aptitude test at the age of 8. Based on its results, they receive rings that record their personal information and abilities. These rings are worn around the neck. These rings divide people into 5 categories based on color, special gold. The highest is silver, regular and low are copper and gray respectively, and the lowest, the scum, black. Shan Yue belonged to this category. The guards selected people to participate in the battles. There was a small queue for them. Shan Yue's turn came and the guard prepared to scan his personal data. The display showed an error. The guards were puzzled and Shan Yue explained that this happens whenever he picks up supplies. This has been happening for many years and is not a problem. The guard had never heard of such a thing. In a correctional colony, this does not matter, but if a guy wants to get into the jurisdiction, he needs to be more careful with this. His partner suggested that he scan the guy again. The guard brought the scanner to the ring on Shan Yue's neck. A loud voice came from behind and said that if the guy couldn't register, then he should get out. There are still people here waiting to register. Immediately after this, Shan Yue received a strong blow to his head. He quickly stood up and turned around to see who was so impudent there. The big guy grinned and felt his complete impunity. Shan Yue ignored the impudent man and asked the guards to continue scanning. He really needs to be a part of this. The guy standing behind him kicked him in the back. The alley was filled with a cry of pain. The attacker sat in the splits, and his leg was held by Shan Yue, who did not even stop talking to the guards. He didn't seem to notice that he had pinned the insolent man to the ground. The guards saw that the guy was very good. Shan Yue let go of the bully's leg, and then sat up with difficulty, barely uttering curses and holding onto the damaged area. He clearly underestimated the little shit, and now pulled out a knife to repay him for his humiliation. The guards finished scanning Shan Yue. His information was fine, and he was invited to board the bus. The guard told the bandit with the knife that if he wanted to kill the guy, he could meet him in the arena. Was he surprised that the security guard would care so much about an ordinary guy? It's not even silver. They really have no taste that they chose this small and skinny monkey. One of the spectators replied that competitions become interesting when there are weak and strong participants. This sweet boy will die so tragically in the arena. Shan Yue heard people around him saying that the ratings would skyrocket, and many couldn't wait to beat him. One of the guys who was sitting in the audience said that just because there are so many idiots getting into fights, those who don't have superpowers and are labeled as trash are paired up with those who have abilities. Everyone listened to him attentively. He extinguished his shigatera, stood up and told everyone who remained that they should be glad they weren't chosen. They will survive. The audience was loudly indignant that an outcast like them was telling them this. The guy replied that he just sat down here to smoke, and now it's time for him to go. One of the spectators thought he looked familiar. He turned around and replied that it seemed like he hadn't won enough competitions if he wasn't immediately recognized on the street. He brushed his hair out of his face and asked, "Is this how you can recognize him?" It was Qin Tian, who held the record of 8 winning streaks in the Living Dead Club. The guards shouted at Qin Tian not to be a fool and to quickly get on the bus. He walked down the aisle and took his seat. It was a bus that never comes back. It is impossible to escape from the death destined by fate. Jurisdiction. System warehouse. There is a person behind the control panel. He looks at Shan Yue's data card. Is this really God's child? His eyes are so similar to his mother's eyes. The man breaks into a satisfied grin. At this time, Shan Yue is on the bus. If he returns before dawn, Chun will not know anything. Otherwise, he will be punished. In the window, he saw the silhouette of a moron approaching him with a knife. Reacting instantly, Shan Yue presses a button that lowers the seat, and he delivers a powerful kick to the hand holding the knife. The knife flies out of the enemy's hand and sticks into the roof of the bus. If the idiot wants to fight here, he's ready. Shan Yue jumps up from his seat and is ready to attack his opponent. Qin Tian carefully observes what is happening and does not interfere. The bully believes that it would be boring if the boy did not react at all, but he will still deal with him before the conference. Shan Yue doesn't want to waste energy on the bastard. Everything must be done quickly, otherwise he will not cope with the test. But if he now takes measures to neutralize this idiot, then everyone will know about his strength, and he will become a thorn in the side of everyone present here. He stands opposite the enemy and thinks hard about what to do. At this time, Chin-tan crashes into the idiot who is shouting that he wants to kill the guy and knocks him out. Ignoring Shan Yue, he picks up the unconscious body and carries it away. The driver thanks Chin-tan for cleaning up the interior. He asks everyone to remain calm until they reach their destination. Chin-tan assures the driver that the idiot will not come to his senses. Shan Yue is impressed by Chin-tan's strength. He knocked out a healthy guy with one blow. He thanked his savior. If he was put in a fight with him, Shan Yue wouldn't stand a chance. He didn't say this out loud. It is very naive to thank your opponent. The boy was lucky, but that is if he survives and wins today. The bus enters a 3-stage steel arch, drives through a dark tunnel, and he drives out onto a wide street flooded with light with brightly lit skyscrapers. Shan Yue saw a completely different scene from the exile zone. Jurisdiction is the place where the highest live. In front of the club stands an impressive statue holding a black scythe. Shan Yue wanted to take a closer look at the statue, but he was shouted at to hurry up. The club's arena was ready to accept all fighters. The hall was full and spectators made bets in anticipation of interesting events in the arena. Shan Yue walked down the corridor with the rest of the participants and looked at the skull flags that were hung everywhere. Towards the living participants, workers carried carts on which lay the bodies of those who were unlucky today. Shan Yue looked at the cart with the dead participants. The workers lamented that very violent events were taking place in the arena today. The worker threw the contents of the cart down. The bodies of the losers are treated like trash falling down into the pitch darkness. Shan Yue silently looked at what was happening to the people in this club. A girl approached the huge door, behind which one could feel the strength and energy, and bowed. The day of the fulfillment of the prophecy has arrived. It's time for the master to set out on his journey. The door opened and the man left the room. The competition participants gathered in the preparation room. The idiot who attacked Shan Yue chose a knife as his weapon. The other guy was using brass knuckles. Another, with 2 daggers. 2 more chose a club studded with nails and a stick. Everyone except Shan Yue had weapons, and his number was unlucky. 4 in Eastern numerology means death. The competition rules were simple. There are 7 participants and 6 types of weapons. The order in which weapons are selected is determined by the rating awarded by the audience. Those with higher ratings are given priority. Shan Yue had the lowest rating. The participant with the minimum rating must enter the arena unarmed. But this only benefited Shan Yue. No one will defend against an opponent with a rating slightly higher than 1 and without a weapon. Most will simply focus on the strongest player with the highest win rating. In the doorway, Shan Yue saw Chin-tan, who was assessing the new fighters. The guy was worried about this opponent. Chin-tan was very strong. With such strength, it was probably easy for him to survive in exile. One of the opponents asked Shan Yue if he knew Chin-tan. This was the guy with the highest rating, 30.5%. He repeated the question, "Does number 4 know the winner of 8 competitions?" He wondered if Chin-tan would help out the loser again. Shan Yue replied that he did not know this champion. The guy believed that Shan Yue was hiding something. Chin-tan was only interested in strong fighters, and Shan Yue didn't even have a weapon. He pointed a gun at Shan Yue's stomach and demanded that he tell him everything, or he would not enter the arena. At this time, they announced that the competition had begun, and the guy walked away from Shan Yue and mockingly wished him good luck. To ensure the proper conduct of the competition, the hall workers ordered the participants to put on the prepared equipment before entering the arena. They turned out to be mini-bombs. The fighters did not expect such a trick from the competition organizers. No one was in a hurry to put the bomb on themselves. Shan Yue did not slow down. He was the first to take the bomb and asked if he could now enter the arena. He entered the illuminated arena. Amid thunderous applause, the fight was about to begin. Commentators reported from drones, "There will only be one survivor in this competition. Before the timer runs out, you need to try your best to destroy all your opponents. If you show mercy, you will be torn to pieces at that very second." All participants were already standing in the ring. In the royal preparation room, spectators debated who would die first. Many believed that number 4, especially because number 5 was looking at him very bloodthirsty, and number 4 didn't even have anything to defend themselves with. Although some bet small amounts on the 4. The match began, and the audience almost immediately saw that something had gone wrong. A club studded with nails ripped open the air. The fighter was at a loss. This is impossible. He wanted to finish off the 4 with one blow. How did it happen that he easily dodged all his attacks? It's not funny anymore. The fighter swung his deadly weapon. Gan Yue watched him carefully. Again and again the club missed the quick boy, and Shan Yue still managed to call his opponent too slow. He dodged another blow and ducked under his opponent's arm. At that same moment, his fist crashed into the fighter's cheekbone. The blow was very strong. His opponent staggered and began to fall. They noted that the guy has impossible reflexes. They were intrigued by the personality of the new fighter. Shan Yue couldn't use his true power yet. It was too early. He winced and showed that he had injured his hand. His opponent stayed on his feet and laughed cheerfully at the idiot's injury. Shan Yue replied that his opponent had thick skin, so he got hurt. He roared that he would kill the boy. The idiot from the bus put knives to his throat and demanded that the fighter step aside because number 4 was his. He himself was going to kill him. He finished off his opponent with one blow of a knife and threw his body into the arena. Shan Yue made him look like an idiot on the bus. Now it's time for him to pay. The fighter was advancing on the guy, waving a bloody knife. The scoreboard showed 10 minutes before the end of the battle. One of the participants shouted that he was giving up the competition and asked to be released. He no longer needed money and fame. He wanted to leave. The guard pressed the red button on the remote control he was holding in his hands. The bomb attached to the ring on the guy's neck lit up red. There was an explosion and it was all over. The body fell into the arena, and the participants could not resist screaming in horror. The fighter with the pistol only looked up from the fight for a moment, and then he continued to strike his opponent, who was already lying in the arena. Shan Yue all this time was dodging the idiot who attacked him with a knife, but could not reach him. The guy noted to himself that his opponent's speed and strength had increased greatly. On the bus, he was restraining himself greatly. If Shan Yue continues to simply dodge his attacks, he will achieve nothing. He will simply waste his time and energy. He mentally asked In Chong what should he do. To survive and protect themselves in the exile zone, the boys had to fight a lot. And Chun, as a more experienced fighter, trained his friend. Shan Yu learned quickly. And Chong used to be able to hit him, but after a few weeks he couldn't even touch him. He even thought that Shan Yue had some hidden superpowers. However, with very good defense, when Shan Yue faces danger, he will not beat anyone with his evasions. The only way to win is to attack. And Chong trained the guy even harder. He took this task very seriously. However, Shan Yue felt like there was a curse on his body. He never learned anything despite constant training. It was very strange that the guy's dodges were getting better day by day, but he still made no progress in improving his attacks. There was a chance that Shan Yue's enemies would die of old age trying to catch up and kill the guy, but it was a small chance. And Chong was very worried about this. He thought for a long time about what was going on, and finally asked Shan Yue if maybe his lack of strength had something to do with the woman he always sees in his dreams. A woman with a divine ring. Shan Yue didn't understand how a simple dream about a divine ring could be related to its power, and Chong encouraged his friend. In any case, if he encounters danger, he can always dodge and run away. Shan Yue didn't like hiding behind the one-armed Chong. He hated his weaknesses and incompetence. He began to train alone. He wanted to become stronger, and was not going to cave in to fate. Now in the arena, he understood that he could not run away forever. He had to attack to win. Both fighters rushed at each other at the same time. The idiot threw a punch. Shan Yue dodged again and hit his opponent, but he blocked his blow with one hand, and he laughed out loud when he saw how weak his opponent was. With one powerful blow, he sent Shan Yue flying across the arena. It turns out this guy is just a rat who dodges all the time. Shan Yue struggled to his feet. His opponent was advancing on him with a knife in his hands. He had one intention: to finish off the impudent boy. Confusion grew among the spectators. What are the 4 up to? Sometimes he is strong, sometimes he is weak. Maybe he has an ace up his sleeve. At this time, on a dark street, a man approached the iron garage door. He was wearing a silver ring. He only said the name, Shan Yue, and the door immediately opened. A successful and handsome young man posed against the background of the burning lights of the city. In the arena, the 3rd number with a pistol ran to the place of showdown between Shan Yue and the idiot. He tore off the mini-bomb and threw it at the drone, which was flying over the arena and reporting. At the same time, the 3rd one pointed the gun at Shan Yue and pulled the trigger. There was an explosion, and the spectators howled with delight. It was so vile. What else would you expect from a player with the highest rating? The idiot with the knife was stunned. He stood covering his face with his palm. The 3rd was quite surprised that Shan Yue was still alive. He was aiming for him exactly as he was able to dodge. Who is this guy? Shan Yue was covered in blood and had difficulty coming to his senses. He could have easily been killed at that moment, but the idiot was already flying toward the troika, shouting that he was going to kill him. He knocked the pistol out of his opponent's hands and they rolled across the arena. Shan Yue leaned towards the pistol that was lying next to him. The 3rd number quickly gained the upper hand over his opponent, and now the knife was threatening the idiot himself. He could do nothing against the iron grip of the troika. The idiot yelled at Shan Yue to quickly grab the gun, and he shot at number 3. Shan Yue was silent and in no hurry to do anything. In the face of danger, the idiot began to beg the guy to help him. He promised to share his winnings with him or even let him win. Shan Yue did not move. The third number stuck the knife into the idiot and it was all over. He rose to his feet and aloud pitied his opponent for his unlucky fate today. Now Shan Yue was next in line, and the third number went to him. But he was stopped by someone standing in the back. The first number managed to grab the pistol and fired a shot. Now the winnings will be his. Troika fell next to his victim in the arena. Drones broadcast from the competition. There are 2 fighters left, number 1 and number 4. All over the city, competitions in the Living Dead Club were shown on screens. The first number was shown in close-up with a pistol in his hands, followed by Shan Yue. The young man saw what was happening on the screen and a surge of energy surrounded him. This garbage must not die. The flash of energy from the guy was so strong that the streetlights exploded. The traffic lights went out. People covered their eyes with their hands and tried to hide from the glass shards falling on them. The culprit of all this continued to smile joyfully. In the arena, Shan Yue replied to his defeated opponent that he would not receive the winnings. He was very surprised. They were the only 2 left. He had the gun. The enemy is unarmed. How is he going to fight? He pointed the gun at the guy. It was true. In such a situation, Shan Yue would not be able to win. But it's not time to give up yet. He began to rise to his feet. The reporters announced that number 4 would fight to the end. It was not so easy to reach this stage of the battle. The spectators shouted to the first one to quickly pull the trigger and finish off the 4. A shot rang out. Shan Yue closed his eyes. He felt the bullet flying in his direction. He could smell the faint smell of rust in the air. The bullet flew too slowly for Shan Yue and he dodged. The bullet flew past. The audience screamed that the first number sucked. I shot from such a close distance and missed. The first one's jaw dropped. How could this bastard dodge a bullet? Is he really trash with no abilities? They are all at the lowest rank here. Shan Yue was dizzy from tension, but he couldn't pass out now. His opponent pulled out a knife and rushed to attack. He had to kill his opponent before the end of the match. The smell of rust still lingers in the air. The first number weakened quite a bit during the match. Dodging the knife, Shan Yue ducks under his opponent's arm and stabs him in the chin. If Shan Yue is fast enough, he will be able to figure out the moment and win. Simultaneously with the blow, he squeezes the opponent's hand and snatches the knife from it. The guy has little time. He needs to finish off the enemy. He put a knife to the neck of the number 1, but something made him stop. Shan Yue felt that someone with incredible power was heading here. The time on the scoreboard showed that there were 4 seconds left before the end of the match. The spectators were indignant that so little time was sucked, and the 4 stood like an idol. Chintan thought at this time that he saw a pink-haired child. At this time, the screen in the royal preparation room went dark. Chintan immediately realized that this was not just a power outage. The owner of incredible abilities walked along the corridor of the club. The scoreboard showed 1 second before the end of the match. The bomb fell from the ring into Shan Yue's hand. His opponent was happy that he was saved, but Shan Yue didn't think so. It's not time to let your guard down yet. Someone is coming here. An employee came into the arena and said that due to problems with electricity, the end of the competition was postponed. The fighters need to go to the rooms and wait for the announcement. They walked down the corridor. Number 1 was worried about who would win. They almost died. Maybe the winnings will be divided between 2. The employee replied that management would decide about the reward, and the final decision would be given to the fighters after the discussion was completed. Shan Yue encountered a strange young man who told him that he fought well. The guy laughed and said that Shan Yue should thank his savior. Shan Yue did not understand who the savior was here, but he suddenly fell to the floor and did not move. The young man tutted contemptuously and called Shan Yue a weakling. Then he lifted the motionless body onto his shoulder and carried it along the corridor to the exit. The worker followed them and demanded that the guy let Shan Yue go. Members may not leave the club. When the guy didn't answer, the employee grabbed him by the shoulder and reminded him that the fighters were the property of the club. The young man waved his hand and with a powerful blow slammed the worker into the wall. This fighter is no longer the property of the club. Chintan was asked what he thought about all this. He replied that the wind had changed and thought that perhaps that child with the black ring was the key to changing this world. He really hoped to capture this child again, who was hanging unconscious on the kidnapper's shoulder. A car was parked not far from the arch that was the entrance to the jurisdiction. 2 bandits in the alley told their boss that they could rob her. Maybe this is the same car from the legends. Sitting in the car was the same young man who was waiting for Shan Yue to wake up. Dark personalities approached the car, and at that moment it was enveloped in a cloud of energy. Shan Yue came to his senses and did not understand where he was or what was wrong with him. He saw who was sitting next to him and immediately recognized the one who had caused trouble in the club. Why did he bring him here? Who is he? Shan Yue understood that this was a person with abilities. From the pressure that the guy felt being next to him, He could not move. He is definitely of the highest level, if not special. But why would he save Shan Yue? Shan Yue saw with his own eyes people who amuse themselves with the life of scum as they want, and do not consider them to be people. Of course, Shan Yue wanted to ask the guy a lot, but his instinct told him that it was better not to get involved. He opened the car door to run out. Meanwhile, the guy introduced himself. His name is Liu Jichuan. Shan Yue changed his mind about running away. He was amazed by what he heard. The Liu family is the third among the 8 great families. The ring on his neck is gold. Liu Jichuan immediately stopped Shan Yue's thoughts of escaping. Now his life is in the hands of Jichuan. Shan Yue silently looked at the guy who suddenly called him a divine child. At this point, the guy was completely taken aback. If you believe the legends, above the special class there is another more impressive divine class. One person with a divine class is superior to 100 with a special class. His existence in itself is like a real god. Shan Yue had heard about this legend, about the divine class person Liu Song. Ji Chuan replied that Liu Song was his great-great-grandfather. Shan Yue froze. He couldn't calculate all the generations, and if he is a divine child, then he is Ji Chuan's grandfather. He advised the guy not to talk nonsense. The legends that Shan Yue had heard about the divine class were not entirely true. Since the appearance of the first ability holder, there have been 3 known people with the divine class. Ji Chuan's great-grandfather is Liu Songting, Wu Yue, who has the gift of foresight and immortality, and another person who disappeared shortly after being recognized by the divine class. And Shen Yue is the child of the owner of immortality, Wu Yue. Shan Yue thought it was a stupid joke. Doesn't he belong to the scum? What kind of child of God is he? It even sounds funny. Then he remembered a dream that he often had. Maybe that woman from the dream is his mother. Ji Chuan said that Shan Yue, of course, has many questions. He will answer everything gradually. But first, we need to ensure his safety. His face was broadcast throughout the jurisdiction, and soon people in the heavenly city would know about him. There is very little time left before those who want the guy to die begin to appear. Ji Chuan knew that a new war would soon begin. Shan Yue sat with a detached look and could not comprehend what had happened to him. Ji Chuan asked why the hell Shan Yue came to the competition. He had to be aware of the limits of his strength. He replied that he just needed money. He asked Ji Chuan to stop for a second. They went out and approached the open garage. The man in the garage recognized Shan Yue and asked if he had finally brought the money. He nodded affirmatively. Ji Chuan sensed something was wrong and asked why the guy was staring at him. Does he look like money? Shan Yue used moral blackmail and reminded that Ji Chuan said that he took responsibility for him. Ji Chuan sighed heavily and asked the seller to give this guy the best he asked for. While the seller was getting a new prosthesis, Shan Yue told Ji Chuan that in the exile zone where he grew up, he had a friend, An Chong. His class is a little below standard, and he didn't need to stay in the zone. But because of Shan Yue, An Chong used his disability as an excuse not to leave the area. It was in order to buy him a good prosthesis that Shan Yue took part in the battles. With this prosthesis, An Chong will be able to move normally and get a job in the jurisdiction. Ji Chuan thought that the tournament this guy took part in had changed so many people's lives. They left the store, and Ji Chuan reminded the guy that now anyone he came into contact with could become a target. If he cares about his friend, then he will need to be left behind. Shan Yue decided to return to An Chong and explain the situation to him before they planned further actions. Besides, he had many more questions. They stopped near Shan Yue's house, and Ji Chuan decided to wait for the guy in the car. A bird was watching them from above. Shan Yue walked towards the door. He wanted to tell his friend about this guy with a special class and all the bullshit with his personality. He wondered what expression An Chong would have on his face while listening to him. Moreover, Shan Yue couldn't wait to see how An Chong would react to the new prosthesis. He opened the door and shouted to his friend to wake up and look at what they had brought him. At the entrance, the guy tripped over something. He lowered his eyes and saw that a bloody old prosthesis was lying under his feet. A voice came from the room, saying that Shan Yue had already waited a long time. The voice continued that if he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that the guy would hide in such a dirty place where those with abilities would not set foot. This is very smart. A man with a silver ring around his neck was sitting on a dirty sofa, and An Chong was lying lifeless on the floor. The man said that he was honored to meet the divine child, and Chun Yong showed signs of life. Blood was flowing from his mouth. Shan Yue could not bear this sight and screamed loudly in pain. The man did not pay attention to his screams. He was delighted that he had found Shan Yue first, and was now the closest to the deity. Shan Yue rushed towards An Chong's body. The man was surprised that this was a guy he knew. Shan Yue did not listen to him. He asked An Chong to wake up and look at him. The owner of the silver ring didn't understand. Is the guy really crying over this garbage? He grabbed Shan Yue by the breasts and called her a useless loser. What a disappointment, this loser is the heir of a deity. He struck Shan Yue hard. The blow sent the guy flying against the wall and falling to the floor. The man approached him and grabbed him by the throat. He even thought that he had made a mistake. A divine child cannot be so weak. Shan Yue could dodge, but it didn't matter now. Why did his friend with whom they had been connected for years die? Why didn't Shan Yue himself die? The guy didn't even try to escape from the attacker's tenacious fingers. He almost lost consciousness and felt that he was in an unfamiliar place. He was drawn into the open door. He himself appeared from the door, told him to move and walked out of the black space behind the door. Shan Yue flew into the black abyss, and the second he walked into the room. The double threw a merciless, cowardly gesture at the closing door, and did not react to Shan Yue's cry to wait. The door closed tightly. At the same moment, Shan Yue came to his senses and grabbed the man's hand. With a sharp jerk, he tore his hand away from his throat and threw his opponent far forward. He fell down against the wall, and Shan Yue went towards him. The man realized that his arm was broken. He looked at the formidable Shan Yue approaching him. The man began to beg for mercy. He didn't understand what was happening. Even the guy's aura was completely different from what it was before. He sat on the floor and couldn't ask himself that he had screwed up like that. He decided that he needed to quickly end this, gathered all the energy in his hand, and threw it at Shan Yue, shouting that it was time for him to go to hell. But his hand could not touch the guy. She came across a solid barrier, and she stopped obeying her master. Shan Yue lifted all the furniture in the room into the air. Beds and wardrobes were flying around him. He used telekinesis. He grabbed his opponent by the neck and threw him to the floor. He flew back against the wall and felt completely helpless. The new Shan Yue has turned into a ruthless killing machine. He waved his hand. A dense cloud of power enveloped him, and a cabinet flew at his opponent, which he barely dodged. The man bitterly regretted that he had underestimated his enemy because he was wearing a black ring. Otherwise, he would not have talked to him, but would have finished him off right away. The telekinesis that Shan Yue used had a range. The man ran towards the exit. He hoped to increase the distance between himself and Shan Yue. And once he gets out, the bastard won't be able to do anything to him. But on his way out, Zichuan blocked his way. He calmly asked if the guy thought that he had made a mess here and now he could leave without any hindrance. A gold ring shone on his neck. The man immediately understood who was in front of him. The attribute of lightning, a scar on his face, a gold ring. This is Liu Jichuan. Shan Yue approached him from behind. The man's situation could not have been worse. Shan Yue waved his hand, and the man grabbed his throat with his hand. He began to strangle himself. He was choking and could not utter a word. Finally, his spine broke, and it was his end. New Shan Yue stared blankly at his enemy's body. Jichuan calmly asked if the guy would attack him too. Without saying a word, Shan Yue staggered and fell unconscious on the floor. Jichuan looked at the guy prostrate in front of him, and thought skeptically that he did not at all look like the savior they had been prophesied. Shan Yue woke up screaming. He called his friend. Unfortunately, his friend Chun was lying on the bed covered with a sheet. Nothing could be done. Jichuan was smoking on the side. He finally waited for Shan Yue to wake up. Shan Yue walked towards Chang's body. He burst into tears and picked him up. He carried it from the house to the street. Jichuan Yen prevented him. In a clean place under a tree, Shan Yue dug a grave and placed the body of his only friend in it. He covered the grave with earth, and he placed a cross he made with his own hands on the grave. He mourned his friend until he heard his voice. How long was Shan Yue going to sit there looking mournful? He saw the ghost of Chang laughing and saying that Shan Yue should cheer up. Then the ghost sat down next to the guy and stroked his head. No one else saw Chang, only Shan Yue. After a while, the guy walked up to the car, where Jichuan was waiting for him. Traces of tears were still visible on his face. He knew that Chang died due to Shan Yue's identity being revealed. Jichuan did not console him. Chang's death was on Shan Yue's conscience, but the guy is not allowed to choose his fate. Moreover, now is not the time to feel sorry for themselves. They need to move on. This could happen again, and if Shan Yue doesn't want this, he has one way out, to become stronger, and then change your destiny and the destiny of all people in this world. Before getting into the car, Shan Yue looked at his house one last time. This is where he and An Chang played as children. Two boys appeared in his mind's eye, looked at him, and they waved goodbye. Shan Yue said goodbye to Chang. He really hoped that someday they would see each other. Shan Yue recalled the events of the past day. He clearly felt that his body was occupied by someone else, and he could only helplessly watch what he was doing. The double was very similar to him, but had terrifying power that would frighten even the gifted. If the double had been in his place from the beginning, Chang would still be alive. Shan Yue overcome these stupid thoughts of what can no longer be. His fists clenched tightly. He asked Jichuan where they were going, and he replied that he was going to a better place, to a building with a better view, which they will use as a base. In addition, Shan Yue needs to change his dirty rags, which he mistakenly calls clothes. They stopped near a building. Their way was blocked by armed people who demanded that they identify themselves and say which gang they were from. Shan Yue recognized the members of the Black Bear gang and suggested that Ji Chuan go to another place. This gang was engaged in the resale of goods and management of the illegal production of prosthetics. Ji Chuan didn't understand. What should they be afraid of? He told Shan Yue to stay put. His main task now is to protect himself. Shan Yue watched as the bandit scattered under the influence of his comrade's strength, after which Ji Chuan entered the building and was enveloped by the guy's inherent strength. A minute later, there was an explosion. Shan Yue covered his head with his hands to protect himself from fragments and small stones. Dirty people ran out of the building, shouting that a gifted person had come to them, and they needed to quickly run away. Ji Chuan appeared at the window and invited Shan Yue to come inside. The bandits in the alley were discussing today's events. When dudes like this with abilities appear in the exiled zone, something important is about to happen. This one attacked with electricity. They probably talked about him in the jurisdiction news. And behind him was the guy with the black ring. No one has seen a person with a black ring who has powers. They decided to first go to the boss and figure out what to do. In jurisdiction, a car pulled up to the Living Dead Club. The girl was taken out of it in handcuffs and shackles. She was led to a motionless worker who was slammed against the wall by Ji Chuan. The girl touched the man's head, and her hands lit up with a warm fire of energy. She finished the session and was asked if she had seen her attacker. The girl replied that she saw it. He has a golden ring, purple hair, and a rare electrical ability. And then he left with the boy with the black ring. The girl seemed completely exhausted, after which the girl was taken back to the laboratory. The woman who accompanied the girl said that young Master Liu openly opposed the 8 main houses. There are no leads yet about the guy with the black ring, but first I need to report to my superiors. She worries that Yue's people are waiting in the wings to attack them again. Shan Yu had a nightmare. He ran to help An Chong, who was desperately calling him. Terrible demons shouted after him that he was trash, and the death of his friend was on his conscience. He woke up screaming and then realized that it was just a dream. Ji Chuan watched TV without sound. A news broadcast was broadcast. Ji Chuan added sound. The announcer said that the investigation into the attack by the holder of abilities in the arena is ongoing. Let's look at the scene of the incident. It was already dark outside, and Shan Yue didn't even know how long he had been sleeping. Ji Chuan replied that the guy could sleep some more. Then he would have little time to sleep. Shan Yue realized that those people might come for him again. Just when will this be? Ji Chuan believed that the fastest time was in a second. The slowest was a day or two. Is the guy afraid? Shan Yue was afraid. He never thought that he would live in the exile zone for so long. His task was always to live until tomorrow, and he was glad that it came. His desire to live was both frightening and greedy, but there was always something good that made him want to live. He knew that Liu Jichuan was strong, but what would they do if the enemies attacked all together? He didn't want his new comrade to get hurt. Jichuan replied that he did not tell Shan Yue that he was only on his side. On his phone in a group chat, the coordinates of their stay were given and 4 people saw it. Time for clarification. There are over 20 different gangs in the exile zone. To survive, people join gangs. 3 gangs are especially powerful. The Black Bear Gang, to which Chintan belongs, resells goods and runs the illegal production of prosthetics. Silver Fox. This gang is engaged in business in the entertainment sector. Its trading scale has reached the limits of the jurisdiction. The Cannibal Gang, as the name suggests, loves to eat people. This is the most dangerous gang in the exile zone. Shan Yue and An Chong did not join any gang, but instead relied on each other to survive. Ji Chuan lay there and wondered out loud what the others would do. Will they come to protect Shan Yue as they promised 18 years ago? Or do they not care whether he is alive or dead? Or will they join the House of Lin? Shan Yue did not understand what choice Ji Chuan was talking about. Aren't these 4 allies? Ji Chuan told the guy that Her Excellency Wu Yue was surrounded by 6 proxies of the House of Representatives. Along with the House of Liu, in which he was born, there were the houses of Han, Zhou, Su, and Pai. This group believed that rings developed an evil personality. Wu Yue wanted to create a society where the untalented and gifted could exist in harmony. They wanted to tear down the wall separating people, and this caused a sharp protest from the others. They did not want to live with garbage and garbage. In the meeting hall, Wu Yue received a hostile reception. The head of the Lin family accused her of being irrational. Later, the House of Lin allied with other houses to start a war. Her Excellency Wu Yue foresaw the coming crisis. She called the heads of the houses loyal to her, and this was the first time they saw Shan Yue. He was lying in his mother's arms. She made a request to everyone, although she admitted that her request was selfish and dangerous, but she begged everyone not to forget about their great mission. Once their group compromises with the rest of the houses, they will destroy the entire world. Everything will become even tougher than it is now, and untalented people will be on the verge of destruction. 2 different worlds exist inside this wall and outside it. This allows the gifted to expand their boundaries. Today, Wu Yue left the choice to her comrades. She hopes that their descendants can save this child when war breaks out again in the future. She knows that now the child is powerless, but in the future he will be able to correct this society. This will happen when he awakens. She kissed her child and fell silent. After the defeat in the First Generation War, the influence of the rings was strengthened. The hunt was on for the untalented. Her Excellency Wu Yue was defeated by the House of Ling. All her portraits were destroyed. There have been changes in Heavenly City, and the rankings of the 8 main houses have changed. House of Ling separated all of Wu Yue's confidants from the rest, and he began to control their every move. Therefore, for the next 18 years, the descendants of Wu Yue's followers, who were entrusted with an important mission, pretended not to know each other even if they met in public. They could not contact each other at all, so as not to give the Lin house the opportunity to suspect them of something. 18 years later, Ji Chuang still remembered the people who guarded this plane. He wonders how many of them will keep their word. In any case, Ji Chuan can carry out the mission himself without waiting for help. Shan Yue was sure that his new comrade was disappointed in him. He did not deny that he wanted to see a child of God who could change the world, but Shan Yue is very mediocre, and it's a little disappointing. But Ji Chuan does not regret that he came to the guy's rescue. Shan Yue thanked him from the bottom of his heart for this. He was about to go outside to bring them some food. When he walked out into the corridor, his legs gave way and he sat down on the floor. The guy couldn't stop trembling in his arms and legs. He remembered his mother's words that when he wakes up, he will correct this society. This made him feel bad. Not only could he not protect the world, he could not protect himself. He couldn't accept it. No matter how many gifted ones come to take his life, he should not be afraid. He must continue his mother's work. Suddenly he heard a strange sound, and at that same second he quickly jumped away from the place where he was sitting exhausted. He saw a fire break out there and an explosion sound. Ji Chuan sat calmly in the room and noted that Pai Starfire was already here. Has she become their enemy? Shan Yue desperately dodged the deadly bursts of fire. The flames were clearly following him. How could this be possible? It quickly determines the guy's position and he doesn't even see who is attacking him. Does even his breath give away his place? He tried to hide, but he didn't succeed. The flame followed him. He extended his hand, trying to stop the flow of fire. He needs to hold out until Liu Ji Chuan comes to the rescue. However, he could not rely solely on the help of others. He had to save himself. He must continue to work. Shan Yue rushed to run through the wall of flames, dodging the explosions. The flames drove him into a trap. He was surrounded and doomed. The flames followed his movements. He had to somehow make him stop watching himself. He needed to hold his breath, and in that short moment, find the source of the fire. This way he can catch the one who controls it all. He cheered himself up and took action. Shan Yue remembered in Chong's words that you can only win when you attack. He must fight. Holding his breath, he rushed through the fire. The whole house was engulfed in flames. On the roof stood the woman who controlled them. She had just noticed that her victim had disappeared. Hearing a rustling behind her, she turned around. A very angry Shan Yue flew towards her, shouting that she had been caught. He stopped opposite the woman who had extinguished the flames and had absolutely no idea what to do now. The woman walked towards him. She suddenly smiled and said that it was all over. She was giving up. Ji Chuan sat in the room and smiled happily. The 8 great houses are the highest organization of leaders in the ring world. They control social order. Wu Yue always kept order among the houses. Also in the Heavenly City there are smaller houses, but still prestigious. For example, He, Hai, Pai, who were good friends of Wu Yue. After the defeat in the war, the ranking of houses changed, and the Lin house was able to subjugate all the remaining houses, with the exception of the Liu house. The reason why the House of Liu was still ranked was because its founder, Ji Chuan's great-grandfather, was divine, just like Wu Yue. Liu Ji Chuan was considered a workaholic and took care of the family's business. Shan Yue was stunned by the stranger's words. What do you mean it's over? He could hardly stand on his feet and could not catch his breath. He really wanted to fall, but he couldn't do it when this girl was looking at him. He was saved from a shameful fall by Ji Chuan, who inexplicably appeared next to him and grabbed the guy by the collar. He thanked the girl. Shan Yue didn't understand why. Ji Chuan continued to hold the guy and ask the girl to go talk. She immediately agreed. Shan Yue lay on the sofa, unable to get up, and listened to the two discussing him. Super abilities? Slightly faster reflexes, that's all. The girl said that Wu Yue's child inherited so little. Now their future is full of very dubious hope. Maybe she should just go home and not interfere in this matter. Ji Chuan noted that she was sharp-tongued and retorted that considering how the guy handled her test, he was not hopeless. He managed to hide his presence at the moment when he was engulfed in flames, and then he determined the exact location of the attacker. Not everyone can make such a bold move. Pai Starfire replied that she was the one who took the newcomer too easily. And why does Ji Chuan rate him so highly? Did something happen before she arrived? Ji Chuan remembered well how Shan Yue changed dramatically and killed the guy with the silver ring. He did not tell Pai in detail about what had happened, and got off with the phrase that he had observed an interesting development in Shan Yue's personality. He turned the topic to the girl. They last saw each other 16 years ago. She looks like she devoted all her time to training. Pai replied that Ji Chuan looked the same, and in general, someone with a scar on their face cannot discuss the appearance of others. Ji Chuan agreed to this. Pai Starfire noticed that dawn was approaching, and who would come to them tomorrow, friend or foe, was unknown. Ji Chuan hoped that this someone would not have such a sharp tongue, so they talked to each other. In the heavenly city, people were gathering in the 8 families' council hall. The two men looked at the cars approaching and said that it had been many years since anyone had entered the council chamber. Something great is about to happen today. One of the interlocutors admitted that he misses the time when Lady Wu Yue was in charge here. This hall shone with the presence of the strongest from each family. And now comes a bunch of useless freaks trying to prove that they are the best. The second man interrupted the speaker. The walls have ears and are surrounded by ghosts. Ghosts. They were tasked by the 8 families to track down the descendant of Wu Yue and resolve all incidents. The 2 ghosts listened attentively to the men's conversation. They were eager to punish them for such talk. They were given a mental order to stop eavesdropping under threat of death. The meeting began in the council chamber. 7 ghosts gathered around the table. Portraits of Shan Yue and Ji Chuan appeared on the screens. Liu Ji Chuan, as everyone here knows, his antics at the Living Dead Club caused a stir. In terms of pure power, he is an almost god-level esper. The speaker really didn't want to meet with him. One of the ghosts suggested sending hybrids to the task. After all, they have these crossbreeds. One ghost was upset. He would really like to taste the divine child. A photo of Pai Starfire was displayed on the screen. Liu Ji Chuan has more than one problem. There is also a girl ready to help these 2. The main bandaged freak, who had the inscription Ling on his clothes, ordered Shan Yue to be brought to him alive. As for the rest, just kill them. He was asked what to do with the other 3 families who were loyal to Wu Yue. They are not involved in this yet and have no sympathy for Shan Yue. Master weaponsmith Su Ye disappeared 10 years ago and left no offspring. The Su family has nothing to worry about. One of the descendants of the Han family, Han Shu, has exceptional talent, but he has been bedridden for years and cannot fight. As for Zhou Shi, after the decisive battle, the Zhou family sent him to a monastery and abandoned him. But all families still need to be careful. The main ghost ordered to go to the families and tell them not to get involved in anything. Then they would save their lives. But if anyone tries to help Liu Ji Chuan, they will all be destroyed. During this speech, one of the ghosts was looking out the window. A lone bird was flying in the sky. She spread her wings and flew over the city. She flew into the forest, where a man was sitting on a stone meditating under a waterfall. The bird landed on his shoulder. It was Zhou Shi, and she began to whisper something in his ear. The man listened carefully. He realized that a descendant of the Liu family had already joined forces with a descendant of another family. Zhou Shi rose from the stone on which he had been meditating and placed the bird on his hand. And he ran. He told the bird that he could handle it alone. The bird flew after him, to the Su family's house, which is located in a picturesque place, and was built and furnished with great taste, in a cloud of smoke that spread throughout the room. A ghost from the Chen family walked in uninvited. In a solitary ward, a man lay connected to several devices that supported his life. It was Han Shu. His condition was very serious. He was on a ventilator. The ominous branches of the tree that appeared in the chamber reached out to the guy. The ghost silently assessed his condition, and the branches were ready to deliver a fatal blow if the ghost did not like something. Shan Yue woke up from the conversation in the room. Pai saw someone outside, and Ji Chuan went to the window to look. The guy rushed to the window asking, had their enemies already arrived? Ji Chuan replied that idiots had come. He was unhappy. I wonder if all the people in the exile zone have such problems with self-esteem. Why did they come again to drive Ji Chuang out of the place he occupied? A group of guys with sticks in their hands gathered under the window. One of them shouted into a megaphone, "Would the guests want to come down and talk?" Shan Yue was surprised to recognize the screaming Qin Tan. He was about to call out to him and remind him of their meeting at the club, but Ji Chuan covered his mouth and shouted that he did not have the slightest desire to communicate with anyone. Qin Tan replied that he was not interested in Ji Chuang. He wants to talk to the pink-haired boy that Ji Chuan kidnapped. This will be a conversation between the black rings. Let others not interfere. Shan Yue was stunned by this plot twist. He didn't expect to become so popular. Qin Tan himself wants to talk to him. Ji Chuan and Pai Starfire left the room so as not to disturb the conversation. They leaned against the wall, waiting. Ji Chuang was very disappointed. He was already eager to grab his enemies by the throat, and then such a bummer befell him. Qin Tan said that he did not think that he and Shan Yue would have to meet so quickly. As soon as he learned that the Black Bear Gang building was occupied by the Gifted, he immediately realized that the guy could not have done it without the guy. Shan Yue apologized for taking over the Great Fighter's territory. Qin Tan didn't care about capturing the building. He wanted to know why the Gifted ones came specifically for Shan Yue. The guy replied that no one, including Qin Tan, would believe him if he told the whole truth. Qin Tan prepared to listen. The gang members were bored, waiting for the end of the conversation. They didn't even understand what they could talk about for so long, and everyone was hungry. They believed that the boss trusted Qin Tan too much and allowed him too much. In the room, Qin Tan was summing up the conversation. The boy who is sitting opposite is the son of Lady Wu Yue, and in the future, he will fight with the enemies who have settled in the Heavenly City, and his two allies are now standing outside the door. Shan Yue was surprised how Qin Tan knew his mother's name. He didn't mention it in conversation. Qin Tan asked a counter-question. Shan Yue first left the exile zone on the day he went to fight in the arena. People from other places know the name Wu Yue, but this name has become forbidden in recent years and is not allowed to be mentioned on any occasion. Qin Tan was shocked by the honesty with which the guy told him everything, considering they had only met once before. Is Shan Yue not afraid that he will now come out and reveal his location to those who are looking for him? Shan Yue's intuition told him that his interlocutor would not do this. He is very reliable, and there is no point in looking at him so mockingly. His intuition is very strong. Qin Tan noted to himself that in just 2 days, this child's eyes had changed a lot. He was touched by his honesty and had a clue about Shan Yue's mother in return. The guy tensed up, waiting for this clue. 20 years ago, Qin Tan was interviewing for a job. He went to jurisdiction and was taken to a building under construction in a strange car. The location and purpose of the trip were kept secret. They were blindfolded and warned not to remove their blindfolds until they reached their destination. He worked at a construction site, and after a while he noticed that they were building a prison. It was a prison for one person. The man with the golden ring ordered them to finish the construction as soon as possible. By chance, Qin Tan heard people with golden rings calling this place a divine prison. Before he could hear the conversation further, the guard told him to lower his eyes and go do his job. Qin Tan thinks that Shan Yue's mother is being held in this prison. Of course, this is just his guess, but if this is so, then Wu Yue is still alive. A ghost flew through the Su family's house. There was no one in the rooms. It seemed the house was empty. The ghost could not detect any living creatures. He decided that his mission was completed, and he could return back. Suddenly, behind one of the doors, he felt signs of faint energy. He did not need to open the door. He could easily pass through any obstacles. He leaned half out of the closed door and began to look around. What he saw made him not believe his own eyes. A child stood in the center of the room, entangled in wires. Someone said that there are no descendants in the Su family. Then who is standing in front of him now? The child opened his violet eyes. He suddenly woke up, and this made the ghost happy. Now he will get answers to all his questions. The child scanned the entering ghost with his gaze. Unknown person. 20% of the data has been updated. The ghost noted that the child was not wearing a ring. Even they didn't know about its existence. Who is he? And what does Su Ye have to do with the family? Silence was his answer, and the ghost became angry. Is he deaf? He's talking to her. The child continued to look at him, and 70% of the data was updated. A moment later, the child's eyes lit up with purple fire. 100% of the data is updated. The ghost looked at her, and the question was read in his gaze. What is this? The child said 2 words. Chen Yang. These words had such an effect on the ghost that he jumped. How does this child know his name? He moved behind him and demanded that he answer him. The child turned to him and extended his hand, which was full of purple energy. He hit the ghost in the chest, and he could not stand on his feet. There was an explosion at the Su family's house. The child straightened up and broke the wires that bound him. He was completely shrouded in a haze of energy. The ghost sat against the wall and pressed his wound. How can it be? The shockwave that this child produced from his palm. This is the superpower of Liu Xingguang, who died a long time ago. How could a descendant of House Su do such a thing? This is wrong. This is completely different from the information that ghosts have. He must urgently inform the others to be careful. Families loyal to Wu Yue are not as simple as they seemed. The entire room was covered in purple fog. This came as a surprise to the ghost, his face contorted with fear, because the wonderful child was behind him and touched him with a handful of energy. Chen Yang's ghost's last words were, "No." An explosion of monstrous force tore apart both the ghost and the room. A giant vortex of violet energy was formed. The ghosts managed to get everywhere. On Zhou Shi's way, another one jumped out of the water. With a cry, he attacked the man with water balls that were full of deadly energy. They flew towards the man, who stood calmly in their path. He extended his unprotected hand towards them, and the evil energy disappeared. Zhou Shi began to juggle streams of water, and it obediently followed his every movement. Finally, he let go of the water, and it spilled onto him without causing any harm. Zhou Shi said that choosing him as a target was a big mistake. The ghost's jaw dropped. This bastard just destroyed such a beautiful bomb without any difficulty. Then the ghost decided to finish off the scum with his bare hands and attacked Zhou Shi. He did not have time to get the sword, which was in its sheath on the slope, but the guy easily dodged to the left from the ghost's blow and dealt him a strong counterpunch to the body. The ghost coughed and missed the next blow, which threw him far back. In 2 leaps, Zhou Shi closed the distance and again delivered a series of blows to his opponent. He beat the ghost as if it were a rag doll and not a serious opponent. The ghost realized that he had to run, otherwise things would end badly for him. He wanted to warn others that things were very bad with these families, but Zhou Shi caught up with him, and with one blow he knocked him to the ground. The man grabbed his sword. He took it out of its sheath and put the blade to the ghost's throat. He only managed to ask what superpowers his opponent uses. He replied that he didn't need any superpowers to fight such weaklings. He will defeat them with his bare hands. In a Buddhist monastery, he was among other novices. The main thing he learned there is that, like a line drawn with a stick in the water, human life is fragile and short. Zhou Shi stood on the meditation stone, with the blood of his enemy dripping from his sword. At the Han house, a ghost approached a man who was lying unconscious. Ominous branches wrapped around the patient's wrists. The ghost thought that the information he received was correct. Han Shu is just a living corpse without any signs of movement or intelligence. The branches of the tree felt the patient's body, catching his gold ring. The ghost mockingly said that he felt sorry for Han Shu, who was lying here like an ignorant one. The branches left deep cuts on the hands of the motionless man. Blood flowed. The stalks were sucking Han Shu's blood, and in a few minutes it would all be over. Along with the blood, the person's superpower also left the body. Suddenly, the ghost heard some movement behind him. He turned around to look. A girl ran into the room screaming for the ghost to get away from her brother. The ghost asked, "What will happen if he doesn't get out?" The girl did not waste any extra words. She ran in and grabbed the branches with her hands and pulled them out. Her power enveloped the chamber, displacing the evil energy of the ghost. Having freed her brother, she rushed to him and adjusted his pillow so that he could lie more comfortably. She was very worried about him. A large branch hit her in the shoulder, which was stained with blood, and threw the girl against the wall. She literally pinned her down and she couldn't free herself. She grabbed her injured shoulder. She was in great pain. The ghost said it was inevitable. The sister must suffer and not stop him from killing her brother. Under the loud, desperate cry of the girl, the branches grabbed the patient and lifted him above the bed. The ghost dragged her brother through the window into the street. Ignoring the wound, the girl jumped out after them and landed in the courtyard of the house. The ghost moved away with his brother, who was held by the branches. People were walking towards the ghost. The girl recognized her mother, who turned to the ghost with the words, "If the ghost came to visit them, then why didn't he warn about it? And why did their family become embroiled in an incomprehensible squabble? Is the situation so difficult?" The ghost replied angrily, so that the woman would not try to influence him. Their entire family served Wu Yue. They know very well what the representative of the Liu house is doing now. Let the Han family not meet him if they want to live, and let her remind everyone who wants to help Wu Yue's descendant that they will never win. With these words, the ghost prepared to carry Han Shu away. The woman looked at the ghost with a cold gaze, and her eyes lit up with green fire. She doesn't care about other people's offspring. Let the ghost give up her son. The ghost replied that in any case, her son was a living corpse. What difference does it make to her how he dies? But if she wants it, he will return it. And he threw the body high up, and he burst out laughing. The mother screamed at the girl to catch her brother. The girl flew into the air and extended her hands to her falling brother. The mother demanded that her son be taken back to the ward. The girl hugged her brother. She asked her mother if what she just said was true, that she is not interested in other people's descendants. Will their family just be bystanders and not get involved in anything? Her older brother always said that the emergence of gifted people should improve this world. And now the girl doesn't know where the real truth is. This terrible ghost almost killed her brother, and her mother was polite to him. The mother did not answer, but the maid told the young lady to quickly go to her room and hold her tongue. Now the walls have ears too. The girl thought that she would take revenge on everyone on behalf of her brother. When she was left alone with her mother, she said that her daughter had made 2 mistakes during the fight. The first one did not provide protection and gave the enemy the opportunity to harm it. Secondly, she didn't call for help to help her save her brother. This was the answer the mother gave to all her daughter's questions. Shan Yue excitedly asked Qin Tan to describe to him the premises of the divine prison that he saw. It was a cage-like place with several pillars surrounding the sleeping area, and underneath there was a swimming pool. The liquid in the pool looked like magma. Qin Tan still remembers her disgusting smell. Shan Yue saw with his own eyes how hot magma appeared under his feet. Qin Tan's words rang in his head. Qin Tan saw that the guy had passed out. Shan Yue saw a woman appear in front of him with a question. What can he do? He recognized his mother, who told him to give her his body. Shan Yue guessed that this was not his mother. The woman said that he was right and extended her hand to him, smiling cruelly as she did so. She turned into his dark double, who pointed a gun at him and told him that he was Shan Yue, and shot the real Shan Yue in the head. He did not have time to dodge the bullet.